The rivers that run through our city and neighborhoods are among the most polluted urban rivers in the country. Deferring necessary controls simply pushes the burden of paying for cleanup off on future generations. What would you propose the council to do to address river restoration to protect the health and vitality of our river communities? Let's start with Mr. Page.
I'm sorry, I actually kicked the mic cord that distracted me temporarily. I almost poked Mr. Orange's eye out. Could you repeat that, please?
The rivers that run through our city and neighborhoods are among the most polluted urban rivers in the country. Deferring necessary controls simply pushes the burden of paying for cleanup off on future generations. What would you propose the council do to address river restoration to protect the health and safety and vitality of our river communities?
Right. Excellent question. One of the things that we might want to consider, again, we have a huge amount of development going on in the waterfront, particularly there in Southwest. We want to consider things like public-private partnerships to work with these developers so that they can help us pay the necessary costs to clean up the river, because quite frankly, it's actually in their economic interest to keep the river clean, because no one wants to buy a condominium with a view of a dirty river. So if we can get them on board through a public-private partnership, that would be the ideal solution. If that's not a solution, we might also, again, rely on the idea of taxation, levying an additional tax against developers who are developing along the river in order to utilize that revenue to help clean up the river and clean up the Anacostia watershed and the Potomac watershed.
Mr. Orange?
Well, one thing that the council has to do is to lead by example. The council implemented the bag tax that generated about, I think, approximately $17 million in revenues to clean the river. However, more than 50% of those dollars were transferred to other areas, never made it to actually clean up the river. So if we're really committed, and which I think we should be committed to clean up the river, if we are taxing the citizens of the District of Columbia to do that, we must make sure that those dollars are absolutely designated to go and clean up the river. Also, we, under the Council of Governments, when you have the Council of Governments from Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. come together, we have to also initiate policy where everyone is chipping in to pay their fair share of cleaning up the river, as well as the federal government, because the federal government is here, and clearly we should have a river where we can swim in the river, we can fish in the river, we can do all the things that really make this really a world-class city, especially where our seat of government is, that we're environmentally intact to cleaning up the river. Sorry.
Mr. Lopez?
I think we'd be lying to ourselves if we thought that this was just a DC issue. We need to engage our neighbors in Maryland and Virginia and all work together to fix this. We need to engage the federal government, and we also need to raise awareness among our population here in DC. It should be something that's taught in the schools on how we can increase environmental awareness, what people can do, starting in their own communities to prevent the pollution of our rivers.
Mr. Biddle?
Sure. I think the first thing is we've got to lead on this issue. And, I grew up here in the city, as a child. My dad used to take me out on Potomac, and we used to go fishing. And, one of the things that he stressed was, whatever we take with us, we're taking back out of here. Now, I've had the opportunity now. I'm raising my own boys and taking them out to the river and taking them fishing. And it's clear that a lot of people didn't learn that real basic lesson about, leave the place better than the way you found it. So we have to individually, as leaders, as parents, lead by example and demonstrate that it's important for us to preserve the natural environment. Now, that said, and Mr. Lopez is right, a lot of the river, and in fact the majority of the Potomac and Anacostia, is outside the District of Columbia. And I think we have to make a compelling case to our residents in Maryland that they owe a responsibility to us to do their fair share of cleaning up the river. But we have to, think about, what are the other pollutants? I mean, the Anacostia legislation that Councilmember Wells passed has done a lot to keep bags out of the river and support cleanup. We need to find out what are the other main pollutants and then pass legislation to enforce restricting those pollutants and incentivize our residents in changing their behavior to support it as well.